Professional Wrestling, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This is Wrestling is for Losers, the podcast that's not fake, it's predetermined.
What's up, losers? It's me, Shoeboots, and tonight, oh man, what a show we have for you. We have massive news from both WWE and AEW, and I'm guessing we're going to take some time with it. But after that, we are discussing the life and times of Macho Man Randy Savage and Elizabeth, according to Dark Side of the Ring anyways. I'm very excited about this show, I'm not going to lie. But before we get into that, let's meet our hosts. Now, last week, our first host cut the best opening promo he's ever cut in the history of the show. As a matter of fact, I will, if you haven't heard last week's show, pause, go back and listen to his opening and see if he could top it. Ladies and gentlemen, our WWE shill, it's Texas Crazy Horse. Hello, sir.
You know what? I got emails. I got messages, people calling me. I had Taylor Swift chasing after me. It was beautiful because everyone loved that. I had people. Joe Rogan wanted me on his podcast to talk about it. And
as the guy that stole Taylor Swift's purse.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. I have to be honest. I did lie. Last week I said I used Chat GPT to get that intro, and that was a lie. It was too expensive. I just winged it and went off the rails. So that was all me. And I didn't want to give anyone else the credit for that. So I am going to try now to not repeat it, but outdo it. Are y'all ready?
I think so.
Yes.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me on the show today. That's it.
Boom. Boom.
I got to get a soundboard here.
Right? Boom.
Right.
History in the making. Listen to this. Listen to the man.
This guy.
The chat is blowing up right now.
It's blowing up.
It's insane. Spam those emotes. My goodness gracious.
Oh, my God. Oh, man. All right. Well, I don't know how you're going to top that, but we're going to bring it over to our other co-host, the one, the only. He hasn't watched wrestling for 30 years, and now he has to watch 30 shows a week. It is Coltrane, everybody. Hello, sir.
Hello. Yes, hello. Yes, hello. Boy, that text intro, I'm going to put on the shades.
Ooh.
Because it's been 30 years. 30 years since these eyes have seen the titans of the turnbuckles make moose milk on the mat of madness. You see these raging rhinos rocking and rolling ringside while the retinas burn radish red. These people, these picturesque people of power presenting pectoral perfection, inviting you to a puberty-packed party of pain, pizzazz, and protein-pumped prima donnas. It's about time, Bootsy, that these buxom bulbous brochachos brought branded bombs and brazen beatings with unbelievable bites. My name's Coltrane. When it comes to wrestling, I'm 1, 2. Wait. Oh no! Is it supposed to be 3? No, not 3. No, we're just going 2. No. Let's slam him again, and then we'll count 1, 2, and 3. I'm all in. I'm referring to the
I caught it.
Possible match on AEW this week. That was the most insane thing I've ever seen in wrestling.
It was, for those of you that don't know, Coltrane is referring to John Moxley versus Ray Fenix on Dynamite this week. Very interesting match. From a kayfabe,
we'll get into it.
From a kayfabe perspective. But, what a week for wrestling. I know we're going to talk about the news, but I just want to talk about the wrestling. I am blown, guys. So I watched,
so much to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, Dynamite was amazing. Just certified bangers. But I got to tell you, the dark horse was Collision. Did you guys happen to see Collision this week?
I thought they took it off the air.
Well,
Yeah,
they didn't.
I thought it was gone. I think
Yeah.
once. Yeah, I thought that was out. No.
Opening match. three-way match for the TNT Championship. Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin versus Christian Cage.
What? That's insane.
Christian Cage is your new TNT champion after pinning Luchasaurus. After Darby put the coffin drop on him and was about to pin him, Christian Cage throws Darby out of the ring and pins his own mentee and becomes the champion.
Yes! Didn't I predict that Cage would be champion? Didn't I predict this 2 episodes ago?
I think you
Iron Grudge
did.
seems to think you did.
I did. And
was-
Coltrane wins the prediction.
Dude,
That's well. Let's not jump there because that means you got 1 out of 1,000 right.
okay.
Hey, that's one. All right.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance. That's right. Yes, that's insane. He pinned Luchasaurus
Yeah.
and took the title.
Like a slime ball. Like he let Darby finish
Oh.
him off and then jumped in at the last second.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
And there was this awesome moment in the match where like Christian Cage picked up the belt and was like gonna ram. I can't remember exactly if he rammed Darby or whatever, but at some point the belt fell on the mat, and Luchasaurus looked down and picked it up, and it was the first time he'd ever actually held the belt, like during the match. And then like
Right.
2 minutes later, he lost his title.
Oh, yes.
But he had this moment where like Christian Cage
Oh.
tried to take the belt back from him. He was like pulling at it and stuff.
Yes.
So
Luchasaurus,
good.
he's not a man of many words. You know what I mean?
No.
He's a lot of instinct, with him. He's,
Yeah.
more mass, than mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
It was
fantastic.
So good.
Oh,
And then, dude, Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks had another just banger match. They had a Texas death match, which the rules are essentially the match goes on until there's no pins, there's no submissions. Basically, somebody doesn't get up for a 10 count. You've got to knock the person out, basically.
oh
And
wow.
it was just brutal.
So, what would a Canadian death match be?
Ooh.
Well, you probably have to convert
Sorry.
the 10 count to Canadian. So
Right.
it'd be a 16 count probably.
Sure. Right. That's where it would start. Right. You'd start there. Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh, what a night. But then, oh my God. So, and then I feel bad because I got to tell you, I watched Raw and most of SmackDown,
Yeah.
and I recall enjoying it, but I know I'm biased here, so I'm not going to even defend myself, but I can't even remember what happened on those shows because I was so blown away by,
Yeah.
I remember Cody came out first, and was it Jey Uso? It doesn't matter. Who cares? Oh my God, Dynamite.
Oh boy.
Eddie
Oh boy.
Kingston, your new Ring of Honor World Champion.
Oh, okay. I did see this, and I do have a complaint.
All right,
I do
here
have a
we go.
complaint. All right, I remember you saying a while back, WWE has too many belts. How many belts are in AEW? I know they're different promotions, but they're still on the show. That's too many belts.
It's not their belts.
But they're on their show, so it kind of is their belt.
Okay. I will agree with you that there are too many belts in AEW these days, and a large part of it. AEW itself doesn't have too many belts, but the fact that the Ring of Honor belts are often shown in AEW, and in the case of Eddie Kingston, he happens to currently hold a New Japan belt as well. So yes, I get that it's a bit much. However, this was a very special Dynamite, and I'm going to let it slide.
Oh, as he takes a drink.
Yeah.
Ooh. All
man.
right. Well, it was an insane week of television and wrestling, and for me, watching this week, last week was absolutely, I think we can all agree, was incredible. It was the return of a legend, right? I mean, my goodness, how many years has it been to see Josh Duhamel on the latest episode of Big Brother? I mean, he came back. It was Josh Duhamel, and there he was on Big Brother. Huge news all over the internet. Everybody was talking about his return of Josh Duhamel. And this week coming up, right? Talk about all this amazing programming, right? We're talking about AEW, WWE. On the same night, we're going to have Amazing Race and Survivor on Wednesday night on CBS, back to back.
Now,
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Now,
It's
if
gonna
y'all
be
don't know
insane.
this, I've lost a lot of weight. The ultimate goal is to get on Survivor.
Really?
That is the ultimate goal. I
think
love
you got
Survivor.
a good. I think you got a good pitch.
Yeah.
Look, and if so, y'all, hey, all the fans out there, all the millions of y'all, tweet it out.
Well,
Right. You got
Get
to
me on
work
there.
on your Probst pitch. What's your Probst pitch? You got to pitch Probst. We got a
Look.
petition to pitch Probst.
I just go like this.
The
Let them see
triple
the
P.
goods.
guys,
Let
Oh,
them see
boy.
the goods.
He's flexing right now. For those who can't see
Nah,
this,
here, look at that.
he's flexing the guns.
And for those that don't know what we're talking about, Survivor the
pythons.
Amazing Race are two shows that were very popular in 2005.
Yes, right. Right. Yes. Hugely popular.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I might be aging myself because I am
That-
23. So I'm
That
25.
was my prime. 2005 was my prime.
Yeah.
Back in elementary school.
Yes.
Well,
Right. Yes. Elementary. That's where I was in elementary school in 2005.
Oh, yeah?
Of course.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, naturally. Oh, yeah. I was still in diapers in 2005. My goodness.
You were wearing diapers in elementary school?
Well, I was wearing diapers. I'm in my 70s in
Right.
2005. So you start in diapers, you end in diapers. It's kind of the circle of life.
Circle of
That's
life.
kind of how it kind of goes. But
Got
that's
it.
all right.
Got it.
But
So-
we've got quite a while till then.
I watched Raw and I thought it was good. SmackDown was kind of just whatever. It was fine. It was kind of and the last SmackDown was so good. They kind of just took it easy on this one.
Mm.
But I had fun. I went back and watched a bunch of old stuff like the debut of Kane, and I watched this
Oh,
video of Mankind and Undertaker, Mick Foley and Undertaker, talking about their Hell in a Cell match. It was like a 30-minute interview with both of them, just watching it and going through it. Oh, it was so much fun. Nostalgia stuff is just amazing right now. All the stuff you can just go back and just
yes.
get real and deep into. I had a blast.
Can I ask a real quick history question? Again, haven't
let's go.
watched in like 30 years, right? So I missed the Attitude Era. I missed kind of the Undertaker. I watched in the 80s, Macho Man, Ricky Dragon, Steamboat. Great. So there's three guys or two guys that I thought were the same person involving the Undertaker. So you have the Undertaker, then you've got Kane, who I thought was the Undertaker's brother, and then you've got Mankind. Kane and Mankind, I'm assuming, are not the same person, but they're still involved with Undertaker. How? How are they all together? It's like the three amigos. Like, how are they all connected?
Well, I mean, Kane's intimately involved because he's his kayfabe brother. So they had a huge feud, and and it was like a huge moment. Like Paul Bear turned on Undertaker and brought his brother, who has to wear a mask because the story was that his face was burned in a fire. Maybe Undertaker.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember. Did Undertaker think he was dead? Was that the story?
He thought he was dead, and he thought he was told that he's the one that started the fire.
Yeah.
Undertaker started the fire that burned Kane's face?
That's the story
And
they
killed
did.
his parents.
Yeah.
Also killed his parents.
What? Oh, and then, okay, so the guy, Kane, was he previously in a league? Was this his premiere? He came out of nowhere as Kane, as Undertaker's brother?
So the guy's name is Glenn Jacob. He was actually before this. He was a guy named he was a dentist. He was a crazy dentist. Something Yankum.
Yankum.
And he was
can't remember the
King
name of this
Lawler's
character.
dentist, and he was crazy, and he had messed up teeth, and he would wear dentist outfits.
Oh,
And
wow.
he was like 7 foot tall. It didn't make sense. It was awful gimmick.
Okay.
And then after that, he was the fake
Fake Diesel.
Diesel. Yes. And that didn't work either.
I don't know if you do you know who Diesel is, the wrestler?
No.
So there was a time, maybe mid 90s ish, where Razor Ramon and Diesel were two of the top guys in WWF at the time. And they both jumped ship to WCW. They left.
Okay.
And Vince McMahon decided that it would be a good idea to just recast them. And had brought in two guys.
Right. So the crazy thing is, because they still own the names, right? Razor Ramon and Diesel name.
Right.
And I guess WCW obviously heard that they were, because they promoted it. Diesel and Razor Ramon's coming next week. Next week they'll be back. And WCW are like, wait, they're with us.
Right.
So they thought it was real too. And then two fake guys show up.
Oh my God. And then fake Melania walks out. And the rest is history.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Got you. And they played fake Diesel. Okay. Fascinating.
And the
wow.
guy that played fake Razor Ramon, I can't remember his name, but I actually worked with him for a couple years. I worked at a local car dealership after I got out of high school. I was a detailer and a lot rat is what they call him. One of the young guys that park cars and stuff. And he was a parts driver at this Chevy dealer. He would do his Razor Ramon impression all the time. He was a huge guy and he was hilarious. It was like, I remember talking to him and being like, it sucks for this guy that his big break, he had to be doomed to play the fake Razor Ramon. Like, I feel like this guy deserved a shot, you know? But
yeah. And then real quick, because we got to get to the news. So, and then who's Mankind Mick Foley? I know his face. I know exactly what he looks like. What was his quick thing? Just super fast.
Mick Foley is just another famous wrestler. All around the same time when Kane was big, he had a very famous feud with Undertaker. But other than that, I don't know if I.
Oh, they had the famous cage match where he got thrown from the top.
Hell in a Cell match.
Yes, Hell in a Cell. Got you. Right.
Yeah, that match, they're always going to be connected because of that match.
Got you. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate the little history lesson. Thank you, boys. Getting me caught up. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah. No, of course. Mick Foley is one of my all-time favorites, and I feel like we're going to talk about him at some point. But for now, let's get to the news because there's so much news.
Woo!
All right, guys, there's so much to talk about. We're going to kick it off with what I think is the biggest headline, and that is in WWE news, Smackdown is ending its relationship with Fox. It is moving to the USA Network October 2024. Now, there's a couple things I want to mention here, and then we'll talk about it a bit. So, Hulu, which you guys know better than me because Hulu's an American streaming service, but Hulu currently has the rights, as I understand, to stream the next day, right? After SmackDown airs, you can watch it on Hulu, is my understanding. That's ending. They said that is going to be expiring soon, and that content will be removed from their website. There's no announcement whether or not Raw and NXT will stay with USA, but SmackDown is moving there and potentially moving nights. It might not be on Friday nights anymore because they were on Fridays because that's what Fox wanted. Some of you will recall SmackDown, when I first was watching back in the day, it was a Thursday night show. And I don't know, it might have moved other than that I don't know about. But should also mention here, NBC owns the USA Network. So if WWE is going to align themselves completely with NBC Universal, they already have a streaming deal with them. This seems like an interesting move. But what do you guys think? I like Fox is a network television channel, so this is, at least on paper, a step down. But maybe this is a step up in terms of really kind of like aligning themselves with NBC Universal. What do you guys think?
So for me, actually, I didn't get this news before the show, which is upsetting. This is not good for me because I watch Raw and SmackDown on Hulu. I wait the day, and that's how I watch it. So now I have to find another way to watch it.
Well, because Peacock doesn't get it right away, right?
Right. It's like weeks, like 2 weeks afterwards, and that's simply too long. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have to find a new way to watch, which is very upsetting. And because I don't want to watch it like AEW, where I have to watch 40 minutes of wrestling and 3.5 hours of commercials.
Oh, boy.
So that's not good.
Oh, boy.
I think SmackDown leaving Fridays is probably a good thing. since Friday's kind of people goes out, there's football games, there's stuff going on Fridays, so it's harder to compete with Fridays.
Now,
So
guys,
I think. Go ahead.
I'm just sorry to interrupt. Iron Grudge in the chat has reminded me of something I forgot to add to the notes, but it's a pretty interesting footnote.
Oh yeah.
Part of the deal includes that WWE will produce 4 primetime specials of some sort for NBC television, so the network channel.
So as a UFC fan, I know what they would do stuff like this for Fox. They would be big cards, the top heavyweight championships. So hopefully this would we can get some big cards throughout the year that aren't pay-per-view. They're just like a big time Smackdown. That'd be cool.
So you think that this is so Shoeboots, you're thinking this is a negative. Tex, you think this is a positive for WWE?
I feel like I don't. I feel like there's not enough information for me to think there's because I think like if this is all a move of them aligning everything with NBC Universal, then I do think it's a positive. I think that's a wise move for them to do. And I think if they do that, they should, and I would say probably would, have their content be next day on Peacock, if not live.
Yeah, but see, I don't want to listen to what you just said because I was about to rip into Tex. And what you just said made a lot of sense, and I don't want to hear. I'm going to pretend I didn't just hear that, so I get a chance to go after Texas right now. This is great. So Fox, right? It's the biggest network in the U.S. It's huge. It's Fox. So they're being dumped by Fox. I don't hear the WWE shill talking about ratings right now. As you go after AEW and the ratings are so low. Well, Fox is dumping WWE, right?
Is it Fox dumping or is
no?
It...
But I'm saying it is. That's not at all what's happening.
Saying it is,
but it's a great little thing that I can put in there.
It's a really good point, actually. Like that, everything's about rating. The ratings are obviously going to go down when they go to USA.
Yeah, now, Fox. I mean, they're going to probably replace it with a new Gordon Ramsay Hell in the Kitchen show or something on Fox. But go ahead.
Is NBC owned by Disney?
No,
no.
NBC Universal is its own company. It's one of the
owned by Comcast.
Comcast, and it's one of the. I mean, obviously, Culture, you know more than me about this, but they're one of the big boys that stand on their own. And Universal is their movie division, NBC is their television division, and Peacock is their streaming service. And
okay, so NBC
several
is
networks,
Peacock?
one of which is USA.
So NBC is Peacock, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
So. In theory, this could be a great thing for us if I can get on Peacock right away.
I mean, if I'm NBC, I would totally want to do that, right? Like the whole reason that Hulu doesn't get to do it the same day is because they have a deal with Fox. But if their whole deal is with one company, then it's in their best interest to stream it live online and on television at the same time. A view's a view, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought they would go with a Disney company because UFC's with ESPN, and I figured they would kind of keep the same TV structure. But
you're telling me the new hit show on Disney Plus is The Miz? Is that what you're saying? Season 1, The Miz
could be
on Disney Plus.
It was Mrs.
The Miz and the Misses on Disney Plus.
I think that was the reality show, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah. I can't believe you haven't seen it, Kolt.
No, I haven't.
It's the ultimate connection between your two loves.
I haven't seen anything. I know.
We need to do an episode on the Miz and Mrs.
I don't know. Is Cody Rhodes' reality show continuing? Probably not.
He has a reality show?
He had one season on TNT. But now he left AEW. It was called Roads to the Top, I think.
Roads to the Top.
Jeez, they're giving that out to everybody. Everyone gets a TV deal.
Amazing.
All right, guys, I'm going to jump, just because it's on topic, I'm going to jump down to the first AEW story, and then we'll come back. Because in very related news on the AEW front, Tony Khan has sparked massive speculation from a voice line in his Wrestle Dream promo. By the way, guys, I promised I was not going to pay for WrestleDream, I was like, I'm not going to pay $50 every month. This card looks so damn good. I'm thinking of flying to Seattle to watch this thing live. It's this Saturday. I can't. It looks so good. Anyway, I digress. Tony Khan in a promo for WrestleDream is pre-recorded, but he said several things. He did the voiceover for this, but the last thing he said, and here's the quote: "You won't want to miss AEW WrestleDream, as we'll end a chapter in wrestling history and begin a new era in AEW." Live on pay-per-view next Sunday night, October 1st. Now, of course, this is wrestling. People could say something with hyperbole anytime. It could be nothing. However, the speculation has gone bonkers. And the reason I want to bring it up right now is because, there's speculation that, it's going to be Edge is going to come to AEW, or, big names or new format. I think they're going to announce a streaming deal. That's what I think. And that's why I think it's related. I think that they're going to announce a partnership with Max. I note Max announced this week that they will begin airing live sports starting next week. And you might remember a footnote from a few weeks back, a couple months ago, that one of the rumored reasons that Max was unable to put AEW on their streaming service at launch is that they did not yet have the infrastructure to air live programming. And now they've announced that they do. So
I'm going to tell you why you're wrong.
Okay.
Because we know what the big announcement is. He's going to come out there and he's going to point to the entrance. And then Cult of Personality is going to go on. CM Punk is coming back.
CM Punk is back. We'd like to welcome CM Punk. Right. And then he comes
obviously, out. Obviously, that's what it is. What else could it be?
Dude, if they somehow revealed that the last year and a half is complete kayfabe, like it was all a work, that would be the most amazing thing ever.
That'd be insane. That is you are wrestle dreaming there, my friend.
Yeah,
that is absolutely insane.
Now, I have one problem. Wrestle Dream is in October 1st, next weekend? Or this weekend?
It's this Saturday, yeah.
All right. Is that 3 pay-per-views in a month?
On the calendar, no, it's not, because All In was August.
Either way, my wife's upset about how much I've been spending on wrestling pay-per-views.
I hope this is their like, hey, we're doing kind of like what WWE does Peacock, because $150 in just a couple months is crazy.
I mean, like they're gonna lose money to attrition if they keep doing $50 pay-per-views every month. Like, like I said I just paid for 2 in 7 days. I'm not paying for WrestleDream. Meanwhile, they've been building this story so awesome in a way that frankly they kind of fell flat with All In and All Out. Some of which was their fault, some of which wasn't. But this card looks amazing. I'm so excited for it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, it'll probably come down to the wire.
You're going to pay for it. Come on. We're all going to do it.
Yeah. I'm going to watch the buy-in and probably get suckered in. We'll see.
Yes.
Can you stream it on Discord?
Can I stream it on Discord?
Text. You realize we're live on the air, right?
It's AEW. I don't
Are you out of
care.
your mind?
I can't help them with views.
All right.
So we'll see. I think, anyways, I think this is really exciting for a number of reasons. One is that, the moment that WWE announced that Smackdown is moving to USA next year, I think that everything else is now going to fall into place because everything was up in the air. Who's signing with who? What's happening with this? What's happening with that? There was even rumors that maybe Warner Brothers Discovery might also get the rights to WWE and have both of them on their network. Who knows? But I feel like everything's going to click into place now pretty quickly. So I'm excited and hopeful for a full streaming solution for all of my wrestling needs. And it seems like that could happen.
You don't have it on the notes, but I did hear just talk that maybe Raw won't stay on Mondays.
That's a rumor. There could be a total shakeup.
Right. So I guess
Monday's a bad night for Raw because of Monday Night Football.
Right. So, and the obvious night would be Wednesday, which would be bad for wrestling fans. Because you had to pick one.
I think / hope that if WWE does a power play where they put one of their shows up against Dynamite, I think Tony Khan will just move Dynamite.
Mm.
I don't know, because if you move, you kind of
Like who flinches first?
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a bit of that, but I think that Tony Khan can come out and say what he's always said. Like he's been asked many times why he never put Dynamite up against Raw like the Monday Night Wars of the 90s, and he basically has always said that it's no good for the fans to make them pick. Like let's just put them on different nights and fans can enjoy both shows. So he can kind of stick to that narrative and move the show.
I mean, that's a bunch of bull honky.
That's a nice answer. That's a nice answer.
He knows he would lose.
It's a nice answer, Tex.
It's a nice way to get out of it.
it's for the fans.
Even if it's half true and half I don't want to go up against WWE, I think it just makes sense. Like why would you like it makes there's X amount of wrestling viewers. Some of them are going to prefer WWE and some of them are going to prefer AEW, but why would you ever put those shows up against each other unless you were trying to crush each other? And I can see why that might be WWE's goal, but it's certainly not AEW's goal. So they're going to move their show. I
agree. I hope it doesn't happen. I like that each company has their own night for the most part.
Yeah, I think it's great. And they're very different products, I think, and they're both kind of doing really well right now. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, it's going to be a lot to watch because WWE, they just released a lot of talent.
Yeah, so
Holy cow!
This is the other big story, and I knew that we were going to have a news-heavy night because there's just so much going on here. We'll just have to make do. But yes, WWE has released I wrote gaggle of talent.
Yes, it's literally gaggle. In the notes. It says gaggle.
A gaggle of talent. Now,
what's the definition of gaggle?
I think it's actually plural for geese, but
yeah, it's a lot of geese.
But or geese is the plural for goose. Gaggle is a group of geese. Doesn't matter.
Oh my God.
That are meeting in an alley and discussing negative things.
Yeah. So WWE's released, let's just go. There's some big names here. Most of these names many of these names I've never heard of before. I'm assuming they're NXT talent because I don't watch NXT, but Matt Riddle's probably the biggest name and a little asterisk beside that one because I think that one's a little different than the rest, but Matt Riddle. We've also Dolph Ziggler, Mustafa Ali, Rick Boogs, Elias, Aaliyah, Riddick Moss, Top Dollar, Shelton Benjamin, Emma, Dabba-Kato, I don't know this person, Dana Brooke, Mason Mansoor, Quincy Elliott, Shanky, Ulyssa Leon, Kevin Ventura Cortez, Eichmann Jiro, Brooklyn Barlow, and Bryson Montana. Those are the names that I got anyways. Now, more could surface because there was no press release. These are basically people that have, I believe, confirmed on their own that they're no longer with WWE.
See, here's the thing that I find interesting. And also, if you go to the WWE site, if you go to the AEW site, click on wrestlers, here is a whole gaggle of wrestlers, right?
Yes.
All these names of all these wrestlers I've never seen. I've never seen half of these guys. I don't know Bryson Montana. I don't know Top Dollar, who the chat is calling Flop Dollar.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing, isn't that great? I'm guessing.
Top Dollar is not been on TV much at all since you've started watching. He's basically jobbed a couple times. He's with a group. I can't remember what they're called.
Right. But the point is that WWE is focusing on their what? It's really like 5 or 6, right? And AEW is kind of doing the same thing. It's the same 5, 6 guys and gals each week.
We could probably name 10 wrestlers on each show that are there 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And then the rest that's it, right? So that's like 40 wrestlers across both companies that we
why are they signing them? And then what do you do if you're that wrestler? You're not getting any airtime. Do you go back down to NXT? Are you still getting paid every week? I mean, I'm sure you are, but what do you do if you're in that spot?
Well, I know many of these WWE names were NXT stars, so it makes sense that we don't know who they are. And I think the NXT stars are a little bit different because NXT is the developmental program, so it makes sense that once a year or so that they're going to release people that didn't work out. So and this is the first time they've done it in about a year and a half, and I think they probably would have done it earlier in the year, but they were waiting for the merger to complete. But But there are some names, to your point, Coltrane, that are main roster talent that have been around for a while and have not been used very well at all. Rick Boogs and Elias and Riddick Moss. Mustafa Ali is a bit of a controversial one because he has been very upset with his WWE contract for a long time. And I believe it was in 2021, he publicly asked to be fired. He asked for his release, and WWE did not allow him to go.
Wow.
So he's finally free. Dolph Ziggler, this is a guy that his the peak of his career is from a time that I didn't watch wrestling, so it's hard for me to speak to him, but he is a former world champion, had one of the, I understand he had a very famous feud with the likes of John Cena, and most of the kind of big name wrestlers have paid him a specific tribute in their socials. Even The Rock, for example, John Cena, like a lot of these guys have kind of like publicly stated their respect for Dolph Ziggler. So he's probably the second biggest name on this list, only to Matt Riddle, who actually was one of the guys we were seeing every week.
Yes.
But I think his personal issues have finally caught up with him.
So, Dolph Ziggler has been in WWE for like 15 years now. So he's one of those guys who you thought, oh, he would just always be there. But I'm going to be honest. I think all these are good. I don't want anyone to lose their job. That's not what I mean by this.
Yeah.
But all these release makes sense.
Yeah.
The only one I don't like is Sheldon Benjamin, just because he's an old guard guy. He's been around for 20 years. And I always felt he was kind of like more of a coach in the back.
Yeah. The one that's most disappointing me is Matt Riddle, because I love this guy and I wanted to see him become world champion. But I mean, we just talked a couple weeks ago. He had some sort of weird controversy at the airport, and I guess I didn't realize this. I actually read this today. What's the head of UFC? Is it Dana White?
Dana White.
Apparently, he and Matt Riddle hate each other.
Well, let me explain why. I'm a big UFC fan. Matt Riddle, if I remember correctly, has 3 wins that have been overturned in the UFC for failed drug test.
Oh.
And that's why he was released from the UFC for failing drug test. Then he goes to WWE and fails 2 more drug tests.
Oh.
Yeah, he was in rehab for the first 4 months of this year after failing a drug test.
I like the guy. I actually really like his character too.
Love his character. Great wrestler.
But I understand. And they put him in big matches. He had a cage match with Rollins not too long ago.
Yeah.
But
this is Matt Riddle?
Yeah.
You're talking about?
Yeah.
Riddle me this?
The original bro, Matt Riddle.
Yeah. Okay.
And, I mean, he had a tag team with Randy Orton that everyone loved.
Yeah.
But
champs.
How can you put this guy in the spotlight and build stories around him when you can't trust him?
Yeah. It's like simultaneously the biggest bummer of this list for me personally, but the one that I understand the most, if that makes sense.
Well, let me ask you this. Sorry, go ahead, Tex.
The only bummer I had by the Matt Riddle thing, well, still, I don't like anyone losing their job, but I really wanted Randy Orton to come back, because I always do. It's always what you talk about. I know. I wanted Randy Orton to come back and Matt Riddle to go heel on him.
Oh.
I thought that would have been a cool story, and now we won't get that.
Yeah.
But it's a shame.
Okay, so quick question. So Tex mentioned that here's a list of names. He thinks that, it makes sense. In other words, Tex, maybe we're kind of trimming the fat a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So Tex doesn't want anyone to lose their job, but he gets it. Now, Shu, let me throw this to you.
Oh.
Out of this list of people, who do you want at AEW?
Oh,
man.
Who should come over?
So
who do you think would succeed?
Personally, the people that I saw on WWE that I feel had tons of potential and were never given a fair shot, were not developed a good story. And of course, I can't speak to how much is them and how much is the writing and what, but clearly it wasn't working for them in WWE. But the top of my list is Rick Boogs. I love Rick Boogs, and I feel like he looks awesome. He looks like what's the lead singer from Queen? What's that guy's name again? He looks like if that guy went on steroids.
Right. Yeah. All right.
And
became a Boogs.
And apparently, I didn't know this till this week because he's been tweeting a bit. His real life name is Eric Bugenhagen.
Oh my
Or
gosh.
is it Eric von Bugenhagen? Yeah, it looks like Freddie Mercury on steroids.
And he thought Boogs was better?
No, that's WWE gave him that name. That's not his choice.
Oh,
WWE
okay.
names you, right?
I'm sorry. You got to change. You can't go with Boogs. Boogs
No.
is just too weird.
I mean,
know,
he tried.
but
He tried. He's like, I'm booging out. Like,
right. He's doing everything he can. I feel for the guy. Right.
but
I'm
man,
booging
you
out.
gotta go with Bugenhagen. That's awesome.
Here comes the Boogs. Right.
Eric
Ready or
Bugenhagen.
not. Yeah, that's insane.
So
I mean,
he's
hopefully, if he switches, then maybe they'll have a name change. You can't go with Boogs. That's outrageous.
The other guy that I kind of have this feeling about, so the other, I don't know if you call this 2 or 1, but Mason Mansoor, Maximum Male Models, they were a tag team, Maximum Male Models, and you might recall Maxine Dupree, who was kind of always seen with Otis and Alpha Academy. She was their manager, and they moved her to these guys and then buried these guys away. But these guys are hilarious, and I haven't had there's just so much I haven't had a chance to look, but everyone is saying that these two have basically taken to Twitch since getting fired, and they're telling stories and popping off, and everyone thinks they're awesome and hilarious. And
You're
so
kidding.
I hope I get a chance to catch up on this, but Mason Mansoor, I think, are the big gets here, even though I personally like Rick Boogs more. But the last one I would add is, and it was I think Iron Grudge mentioned in the chat, is Dolph Ziggler. His brother is Ryan Nemeth, who is a jobber in AEW. And Ryan Nemeth, those of you that watch the Young Bucks weekly YouTube show will know him well because he's in it every week. But these two, apparently, Ryan Nemeth and Dolph Ziggler, who can't use his name Dolph Ziggler when he does this because WWE owns it, but the two of them, they do a comedy tour. And they will often, whenever there's a big show in town, like if WrestleMania is in Philadelphia next year, you can bet that the Nemeth brothers will do a comedy show in Philadelphia the night before. And they will have wrestling guests and comedy celebrities, and they will do their show.
You're kidding.
Yeah. So I feel
and
like
they're both ventriloquists. That's what's amazing.
So I think Nemeth is a guy that's like, he's really funny on the YouTube show, but his character in AEW is super tired and super basic. But maybe that's intentional because he's just a jobber. But I would love to see these two have a tag team run in AEW. I think that'd be cool.
They need to boog out.
Yeah.
So Dolph Ziggler, I think he'd be so good in AEW. I think there's some great matches with Ziggler. Like I said, he's an amazing wrestler. He's really good on the mic. They just weren't using him.
Yeah.
And I think AEW could really use him.
He seems like the most likely pickup because he seems to be very beloved by many a wrestling legend. So even if they signed him for a year to do some dream matches with some people that he never would have faced because he was in WWE, I could see them doing that.
And like I said, I could see Shelton Benjamin going there for, like I said, like more of a elder statesman, trying to help the younger talent.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him, but I should learn more.
He's one of those guys that you don't think about, and then you see him like, oh yeah, he's been around forever. I think because he came with Brock and Randy, and he was part of the tag team on Kurt Angle, the greatest tag team ever, is what they called himself. Yeah, I'm really excited to see Dolph Ziggler because I think they had to wait 90 days for non-compete.
That's their typical release agreement. Yeah.
Right. But I guarantee if he wants to, because he is like 40 something, if he still wants to wrestle, he'll be in AEW. I would think Matt Riddle would be too.
I think I don't know that I would trust AEW to pick up Matt Riddle because they've had some trouble picking up Jeff Hardy, who's had substance abuse issues. So I don't know if they want to touch him, but Dolph Ziggler seems like the most likely bet. The second most likely bet, he wasn't on my list, but it's not because I don't like him. It's because I don't know much about him. But Mustafa Ali is being talked about as one of the most likely pickups for AEW.
What now is Ezekiel's brother, can't even say his name right. Elias. I actually liked his last little gimmick he was running, where he was his brother Ezekiel, and there was a third brother, and Kevin Owens just kept flipping out because he's like, "You're the same guy." So I was kind of ashamed because I really enjoyed that comedy.
I liked it. I thought it was stronger than anything else I've seen this guy do.
I liked it, and I know he's had some huge moments in like WrestleManias and stuff. So I could see him making a good appearance in AEW. And I think Riddick Moss, I think he's pretty young because he just started building a name when they dumped him.
Yeah.
How old is the Boogs?
He seems
48.
like a younger guy. Would you say?
73.
No, he feels like late 20s, early 30s to me.
Oh, he's that young?
Yeah.
I bet he's 35.
Oh, Boogs has got plenty of time. He's going to be booging out forever. Just change the name and we're good. I'm booging out.
It's too bad WWE probably owns that catchphrase, but you could say I'm
change the
booging Hagen. All right.
No.
One last thing to talk about before we jump to our topic. I know it's a news-heavy week, but it is what it is. But we already teased this. We got to talk about it. John Moxley suffers a
35.
mild concussion before Dynamite, and he called an audible. He called a title change mid-match. He basically took it upon himself to change the outcome of the match. This has spawned all sorts of, just in my opinion, annoying controversy online. People getting mad at Ray Fenix, people getting mad at the referee Rick Knox. But I know you didn't see it, Tex, but Coltrane, I mentioned this to you. I wanted to make sure you got a chance to see this if you could, because I feel like these opportunities to kind of like see the curtain peeled back in a live moment, they're few and far between. So this is the first kind of big one that's happened since we've started this podcast, I think.
Yeah. And I literally, and my wife was watching it with me, and she actually shouted, "What? What?" Like when it happened. Like she was just as shocked as I was. And for those that haven't seen it, basically imagine this. All right. There's a pin. The referee goes 1, 2, and then he's going to do 3. And he stops. He literally stops when Moxley, who's about to be pinned, hasn't moved a muscle. There's no attempt at a kick out. Right. So you always have that. Oh gosh, what did we call it? We called it last week. It's it's going to be a 2.5. It won't quite be the 3.
Oh,
there's a name for that.
Close count. What is it called? The
kill or the show or well, anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
But basically, the ref knew that Moxley is, I guess, supposed to win. False finish. Thank you. Moxley is supposed to win that match, right? So the ref is going 1, 2, and he's assuming Moxley's going to kick out, but Moxley doesn't. He does not kick out. In fact, he doesn't even move. So the ref, he's coming down to go 3, and rather than finish the 3 count, he stops. And everyone goes, "What?" Like, and it was the most shocking thing I've ever seen. And Moxie's laying there pretty much unconscious almost. And the ref just like tries to cover it up, like, "Oh, I thought I saw a flinch or something, whatever." Yeah. And then the guy does the move again, and then he does the 1, 2, 3. Seeing a referee literally stop the count for no reason, to me was huge, and something that I have never ever seen. I mean, we can understand back in the day, everyone's like, wrestling's real, blah, blah, blah. We all watch it nowadays. We know it's kind of planned. And sometimes things obviously don't go against the plan. But if you're the ref, seeing something like that, of like a stopping the count because, well, Moxley's not supposed to lose here. I can't.
And it's the belt on, it's a title on the line. So it's a big deal if he loses this match, right?
Oh, yeah.
It means that they got to rewrite storylines.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I've never seen a ref stop. Have you seen that before? Like something that blatantly crazy. Have you ever seen anything like that?
I think that's probably the most blatant that I've seen. I know that like in these moments, what's supposed to happen is the ref is supposed to prioritize the kayfabe over mistake. There's been times when, I mean, famously the WWF at the time world title changed hands because of an accident like that. Once, and it wasn't even on television because it was a house show.
Yep.
Oh wow.
So it happens, and so it's interesting that Knox I mean, he must have just believed in every fiber of his being that Moxley was going to do a very like 2.999 second lift of his shoulder, and it was just a miscommunication, I guess.
But it was the craziest thing.
Yeah.
And Tex, you have to watch this. It's unbelievable. And it doesn't help either that the camera, it's like close up. It's like right there.
The camera was
screen.
perfect to show the screw up.
Yes. Like perfect.
Let me get this right. Jon Moxley, the guy who puts spaghetti noodles in his head, bleeds every night,
Yeah.
had a concussion.
He had a concussion. Now, let's talk about what's known at this point, because a lot of people on the internet have been horrible to a lot of people involved in this match. But essentially, before the match even started, we now know that Jon Moxley got a concussion during the brawl prior to the match. The match then started. Jon Moxley did not become aware that there was a problem until the match was well underway. It's not like he had a concussion, felt that he had a concussion, and then decided to go ahead anyway. It didn't occur to him that he had a concussion until the match was well underway. And at some point during the match, Moxley decided that he could not continue and communicated to Ray and to Rick Knox that he was going to lay down and that Ray was going to win. And I haven't rewatched it, but I read somebody say that if you watch it again, you can actually see Jon Moxley lay down for the first count and look at Rick Knox. And when he stops at 2, you can see Moxley say "F you" right to him. Like, and then they immediately do, I think, 1 or 2 more moves, and then he pins him, and then it's over. Like, because at that point it became clear to Knox that Moxley was going to lay down. And I think that maybe Rick Knox, I mean, a lot of people have gotten really mad at Rick Knox and for Ray Fenix for like, oh, why are you keeping the match going? This guy's got a concussion. It's like, dude, nobody knows, right? Like, Moxley himself didn't even know until halfway through the match. And even if he's telling people, you're in the middle of a match and all of a sudden the guy you're wrestling with is like telling you that there's going to be a different outcome to the match, like while you're in the middle of doing moves. Like, you can't blame anyone for this situation. If anything, you got to commend everybody for, like, as soon as they understood that they needed to change direction, they did, right? And unfortunately, it took the ref about 1 false finish more than would have been ideal. But
right.
But yeah, so
it was nuts, and you could tell Moxley. In fact, even the announcers during the match, they were like, boy, I think Moxley really got his bell rung. Like, he was kind of slow. He was kind of moving funky. Did you see that? Yeah, like something was wrong. And I think it was that first time when he kind of hit him over the head, and it cut to Moxley, and he was laying there just like bulging his eyes, just like, oh, like that doesn't look like acting. Like, he was really like, something's wrong here. And then when he was back in the match, he was just kind of moving super lethargic and kind of slow. But I think there was an issue with that. The move he did was like a kind of a pile driver thing over it, and there's the worry about danger and that kind of thing of it. And then he did the move again.
Yeah, there was initial belief that that's what gave him the concussion too, and
right.
It turned out that wasn't the case. But
correct, yeah, it was throughout the match. But also, like, that's what's amazing about wrestling, right? You've got these predetermined type of things, these matches, but then something happens. Moxley realizes, oh my gosh, I'm concussed. I can't continue this match. We need to change this. We need to change it up. And they do, but just the ref, just, I've never seen that, and I watched some videos of some people were saying, if you're the ref, no matter what, you finish the count. You do the 1, 2, 3. So that way it's on Moxley for not kicking out. It's his fault. You go slow, right?
Yeah.
But you don't stop like he did. Like, that was crazy. And the whole crowd started booing, and like everyone's like, whoa, what the heck? And everyone stood up out of their seats because everyone was confused. Like I said, my wife was like, what just happened? What was that?
Yeah. Go ahead, Tex.
Who was the ref?
Rick Knox. He's the older bald guy.
Oh, you just said. So he's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, he's I mean, I don't know his story before AEW, but he's been with AEW since day one.
It just seems like they got to work on their communication. Obviously there was a communication issue there.
I think, like, at the end of the day, Rick Knox is responsible for the false finish that he should have counted 3. I
Yeah.
think he totally should have counted 3. But he got a lot of flack from people thinking that they were mad at him under some weird, like, ignorant internet-y thing of, like, they think that he was, like, trying to continue the match when he knew there was a concussion, like that it was, like, malicious or
jeez.
something. Like,
No.
no time for that. But I also, like, I can say, like, yes, he should have counted 3, but I also kind of have sympathy for him because, like, I watch wrestling every week, and I know that a majority probably of these false finishes, they're like, these guys lift their shoulders at so late that the only way that wouldn't have been a 3 count is for the ref to not be planning on doing the 3 count, right? Like
Right.
it's like, you know how they say in
True.
baseball, the ball gets thrown so fast that they have to read the body language of the pitcher to be able to hit the ball because they can't, by the time the ball's left his hand, it's too late, kind of thing. It's like
Yeah.
one of those things. So
These moments actually happen a lot where they change the match. Like when Michelle Money or Sasha Banks lost her belt in New Japan a couple months ago
yeah,
to the AEW wrestler. Same thing. She broke something and they had to do it. There's
Wow.
a famous one where Chris Jericho, I don't remember who he's wrestling, but like broke their leg or got real hurt. And Chris Jericho went for the pin. The ref did the same thing. The ref didn't do the count. And you see Chris Jericho get up and just like shut up at the ref and screaming at him, he's hurt. And then the ref DQs him for pushing him. And it's
Oh,
that's
interesting.
probably the best one I've seen with Chris Jericho. It's like, I'm just gonna attack the ref for it.
Right. Oh, I mean, I know what you're saying, Shu, and you're totally right because so many times I've seen them. They go to do the 3, and then one time, like the hand hits, but they're already making a 2, like right before, like half a second before it hits. No, 2, because they know what it's supposed to be. But and you're right, and sometimes stuff happens. You know what I mean? But I've never seen anything like that before, man. That just looks so crazy.
it was a really interesting moment for sure, and
yeah.
I think it's like, a bit of a screw up on the ref, but I to me, it's more just interesting to see that sort of thing happen than
Right.
I don't know why people get mad about stuff like that. But
Do you think that you can make a storyline out of this?
with Rick Knox or
Yeah.
So, like, in other
count,
words,
Rick?
Knox, turns out Knox and Moxley are like brothers.
Knox
Maybe
Knox and Mox.
maybe the Blackpool Combat Club pays him, and that's why he was trying not to give him the pin. I don't know, something like that.
There you go. I like this. The Knox and Mox conspiracy.
I'm down for it.
I love this. Now you're talking. All right.
right.
That's turning water into wine right there.
There it is.
Yeah. Well, no specific word on the extent of the concussion, but other than it's been described as a minor one. So I hope Moxley's all right and he can be back in action sooner than later. And hope he's okay.
Oof.
But
Now-
very interesting.
I thought he always had a mild concussion because the way he gets hit.
Right.
So-
Just constantly. He's always concussed. Right.
Yeah.
The way he talks and the right. Yes.
All right. It's
Thanks.
on that note, we'll move on to this week's topic, which this week we've been doing a little bit of a program here where we've been kind of looking at the pop culture, the fandom of wrestling, and this week we're going to be looking at Dark Side of the Ring, the well-known Vice docuseries that's on HBO Max, and we decided to go with the very first episode, not because it was the first episode, but because we thought the subject would be really accessible for old Colty, certainly is accessible for me, and that is the story of Macho Man Randy Savage and Elizabeth. And if you haven't seen this episode and want to watch it before we talk about it, you can pause it right here. It's season 1, episode 1 of Dark Side of the Ring. But we're going to talk about it a bit. We're going to talk about kind of 2 pieces to this. One piece is the story of Macho Man and Elizabeth, which is super interesting. And then the other, just the show itself. What do we think of the show? So as we often do when we throw Coltrane off the deep end into something new, I would like to get his first impressions.
It was absolutely incredible. And I thought that the format, and we're going to get into that about the format, about how they kind of, how they presented this about Macho Man. What an icon! What a legend! Let me tell you something about, you got planet Earth, right? There's like billions of people. The fact that, anyone could be like, oh yeah, they'll listen to me with the thing and the cream of the crop. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. Out of billions of people, I can say Macho Man Randy Savage, or it can talk like this, and you know who that is.
Yeah.
You know how incredible that is?
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable, this guy.
It's good.
And right. And hearing about where he came from, that his father was actually into wrestling and got him into it. And on the show, they show his brother. And his brother, by the way, doesn't talk like this. He's got like a normal voice, which makes me think the intensity of the Macho Man was part of his character. Like I just wonder, what's Macho Man's regular voice? Like, is he like, yeah, I'll have some eggs and, a cup of coffee would be great. What does he sound like normally? But and then Elizabeth, the first lady of wrestling, this was my genre. The love story when Macho Man proposed to Elizabeth, when he married Elizabeth in a wrestling ring, and I did not know that they were actually married in real life. Now, at that time, I thought wrestling was real, right? You know what I mean? So in a weird way, they were. But I didn't know that they had already been married for like 7 years at the time that he kind of proposed to her.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about Macho Man here. Sorry, go ahead.
Here's what I like about now. This is like what I really like about this episode in particular is this was the first episode of this show that I've seen. I haven't seen all of Dark Side of the Ring. I've seen about half of the episodes, and not in order. I've just kind of cherry picked ones that interested me over time. But this was the first one I watched, and I actually watched it with my wife, who doesn't really know much about wrestling at all, but she's seen the Cream of the Crop promo, and she wanted, like, that's her reference for Macho Man, and she's like, I want to know more about this guy. So we watched it, and it was, I feel like this show did a really good job of really giving us a personal look at the man that was Macho Man. Now, it's TV, so it could be put on, but I feel like a lot of people were being pretty candid about everything that was great about him and everything that was not so great about him. And and when you get that, you feel like people are being genuine, more or less, right? So, that this guy and that he just the part that really sticks with me, and I think it was kind of at the end of the episode, but Eric Bischoff, the former president of WCW, he spoke a lot in this, and he's a podcaster, but he said he judges people by the way they treat children, and I thought that was a really interesting way to judge people in general, but it was really interesting, like the story, and I think it's his brother Lanny does an impression of him. Lanny, by the way, for those, this is a bit of a deep cut. Lanny was also a WWF wrestler. He was the Genius, if you remember the Genius, who would come out wearing a graduation outfit and a big book, and he would cut a lot of promos. God. He was never really big, but he was around during that era.
Right.
And
he looked like a big guy. But what he used to say to the kids, well, go ahead. Tell him what he said. That was great.
A kid would ask, he said, like, Timmy, for example, would ask him for an autograph. He's like, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Timmy. I'm going to sign that autograph for you, but you got to do something for me. How are you doing in school, Timmy? Are you giving your best? Because it's not going to go well for you if you don't. Like, this idea that he would like have this intense conversation with Timmy while he's signing his autograph. In my mind's eye, he's like, hey, mister, can I have an autograph? And he's signing it. And by the time he like gives the picture back to him, Timmy's just like,
just freaked out. Right. Totally. One of my favorite stories in there was with Jake the Snake Roberts. Another icon, yes. You know what I mean? No, I mean, not as big, but Jake the Snake, and for those that didn't watch at that time, he was this wrestler with his mustache, and he had a giant sack, and inside this sack was it like a boa constrictor or a king cobra or
It was a
something?
king cobra.
Yeah.
King cobra.
Yeah.
A massive snake. This thing was huge, and he would pull out the sack and he'd bring it right out onto the ring in front of everybody, and he would usually involve it in the match. So there's this famous match, this famous moment where he had the king cobra bite Macho Man Randy Savage in the ring. So before they go out to do this match, Macho Man goes up to Jake the Snake, and they're sitting there backstage, and he goes, "So, is the snake fixed?" And he's like, and then Jake Snake's like, "Yeah, of course, man." And he's like, "Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't." And he's like, "What do you mean?" So he had Jake the Snake prove that the snake wasn't still poisonous, that its fangs, its venom had been removed. So Jake the Snake pulled down his pant leg and had the cobra bite him in the leg.
At Savage's
after,
insistence. It was Savage's idea.
And he said, no pills, no nothing.
yeah, he's like, no, you just sit there. Don't take any antidotes or any kind of pills. You just sit there and I'm going to watch you. And then he was basically watching to see if he died or not, like right in front of him. That's
like
hardcore.
That's such a great story, though.
Right. Like, that's unbelievable.
I like the idea that, like, at some point, 20, 30 minutes later, he's like, well, guess I'll see you out there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not dead. So, all right.
So, I've seen this episode, and I'm not lying, 5 times. I have watched all the Dark Sides of the Rings multiple times. I love this documentary series. There's one thing I really want to talk about is Macho Man's brother had a TV mount above his bed, and I was so jealous. He could just lay there and watch TV.
Right.
And every time I see that, I'm like, why do I not do this?
Yes.
This sounds awesome.
Yes.
It looks so sweet.
It looks amazing. It's something we all need to aspire to once you've reached that level.
And just a great opening gambit for your discussion on the episode, too.
Yes. Now number 2, my second favorite part. Chris Jericho was nowhere near this episode. He was not.
He becomes the narrator later in the series, doesn't he? Yeah.
It was Dutch
funny.
Mantell. Dutch Mantell is the narrator. So I didn't have to listen to Chris Jericho. That's another win.
Jeez, so much hate, so much anger.
Actually, Chris Jericho does a wonderful job on this show, and it annoys me.
And Chris Jericho, if this is your first time listening, just so you know, Tex's views do not reflect the podcast, and I have gone on record many times saying you're the GOAT. Please come on our show.
You're the greatest of all time.
Done. That's it.
Said no one. All right.
I'm right here.
Said us.
I said it.
He just said it. He literally just said it.
I guess you're no one. So what I really wanted to show Coltrane with this episode, because I know Coltrane knew who Macho Man was. Yeah. He knew Elizabeth. That's why I picked this episode. I know on the surface of when he was watching it, Macho was more. He was higher than high. He was this icon of wrestling. Is bigger than anything in the world, and to be able to see that all his struggles of him and Elizabeth that you never saw in the ring, it's the reason I love this show. And it's that as much as I love the WWE documentaries, they would never show you. There's a reason you didn't see a bunch of WWE employees being interviewed, because they're not allowed to, because WWE don't want you knowing these stories.
Right.
And
right.
I just think it's so good to get a different side of these people in these stories and not be cherry picked by WWE of what we get to know.
Yeah.
And Macho Man is he's a phenomenal human.
Yeah.
But had a lot of problems.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like they talked about too was life imitating art, where, they're married in real life. they're a couple and then eventually married on the show on WWE. And he was very possessive. He was very jealous, very possessive of her. But what was interesting is they said, but he loved her. It was like in his own way. Like they had every opportunity to say he was terrible with her, but they didn't. They said he was very, possessive of her. He wanted to know where you're at, where she's going on. This they had a great love story or love triangle in WWE with Hulk Hogan and Elizabeth. And there was this great shot where Hulk Hogan like picks up Elizabeth and puts her on his shoulder. And then they have this great promo that Macho Man cut. He's like, and then you put her on your shoulder. Like, and he was like
a place she's never been.
A place
on another man's shoulder.
Yes, right. But there was a real jealousy there from Randy Savage about him and about Hulk Hogan. Terry, was his real name, and Elizabeth. And there was this part where Elizabeth kind of left Randy, went to this thing, and she was at this hotel room, and she wasn't answering Macho Man's calls, and he showed up 3 hours later and was confronting Hulk Hogan. He's like, "Where is she?" Thinking that they were doing something. And I mean, it was interesting. The big point they were making was, life imitating art, that they had them kind of fight on stage a bit. He was possessive of her on stage, but then we also heard that was happening behind the scenes as well. But also too, for her, I mean, Elizabeth, she was like, they call her the first lady of wrestling. To me, she's the first lady of wrestling. She's the first lady of wrestling that I really ever saw. And just like everybody else, I was like, this is the most beautiful, amazing woman I've ever seen in my life. I was, to a 7-year-old, you know what I mean? I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, she's still absolutely gorgeous. I'm just saying, but it was just, she was such an icon at the time and still is. In fact, they were saying that they really think that she should be inducted in the Hall of Fame and that kind of thing. It is kind of tragic what happened to her, of course, later in life. I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware of what happened, a bit later on, but it was a fascinating episode. One thing I actually did like, and I don't typically like this, is they did a lot of reenactments, or they used actors to kind of betray, Macho Man and Elizabeth, and they kind of rack focused them, so they're kind of out of focus. But it really helped tell the story for me. Do you guys like that kind of thing?
I agree. Normally, I don't, but I think they do it. They're not like, it's not the whole show, and it's mostly just quick little scenes. So I don't mind them. I don't think they're fine. Some of the actors, like, you do not look like Macho Man. Not at all.
Right. The guy that got playing the Hulk did not look like the Hulk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I thought Macho Man actually looked pretty good. I thought some of the shots looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I normally am kind of staunchly opposed to this sort of thing, but I feel like it kind of works for what they're trying to do. And maybe it's because it's wrestling, and wrestling has a certain element of cheese to it, no matter what you
it's
do.
Larger than life.
Yeah.
And in these reenactments, they had these shots of him, raising his arms, and he's got the strings hanging off his arms, and then and they got the lights on, and she's walking in slow motion, and he's like, it's just, they were royalty. You know what I mean? It was the king and the queen, you know what I mean, showing up. And so I was absolutely floored by this. And like you said, Tex, and I really appreciate it, man. It was learning the dark side of the ring, as cheesy as that sounds, but learning kind of what really kind of went on, backstage. And like I said, talk about an icon that you can hear that voice, that you can say that name. And out of the billions of people on this planet, you know exactly who I'm talking about. That is crazy. That's on a whole nother level. That's another level.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Can we also talk about, earlier in the show, we talked about Razor Ramones. Can we talk about how cool he is, Scott Hall?
I love
just the way he talks. Has I love him.
We sadly lost him last year, but I think we lost Lanny Poffo last year too. Macho Man's brother passed away recently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But yeah.
I love him. His presence is awesome. And so I notice, I see this a lot about Lex Luger, that people hate on him. People hate on him a lot, and he's made a lot of mistakes. But that seems to be the one they don't talk about on the show. I don't think they ever have an episode on him. but he seemed to really turn his life around.
Oh,
He's had
did
a
he?
lot. Yeah, he's had a lot of issues. He's like in a wheelchair now,
Oh,
but
wow.
he's really changed. Because I mean, he is not portrayed really good in this story at all.
No, and for those that haven't seen it, he was really into drugs, and it sounded like he kind of got, maybe Elizabeth kind of involved in some drugs and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it's not clear where it started, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that might have been a part of it too. So, but that's great to hear that he's kind of bounced back, so to speak. You know what I mean? He was in a real dark place, and he's come out of it. That's great. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I mean,
it's a tough life, man. I mean, and one thing they talked about too on the show, in fact, we talked about this at the beginning, or maybe it was the pre-show, is these marriages that these guys are on the road, for 300 and some days a year. And you're going to bring your wife on the road with you, plus all the craziness that happens. They talked about all these parties and all this like crazy stuff that was happening. And Elizabeth was part of that, but Hulk Hogan's wife and Elizabeth became good friends because they kind of needed each other, because the boys are just being the boys, so to speak. They're like, everything's crazy and they're having to travel with them, and how hard that is to maintain that relationship. So it was really kind of tragic too, hearing Hulk Hogan's wife, ex-wife at this point, but talk so fondly about Elizabeth and how they, became friends. They would go shopping together. They would do things together. It was great. It was great. But how tough for any wrestler to maintain a relationship, to maintain a family, a marriage when you're on the road. For us, we watch Dynamite, we watch, Smackdown, and now they're like, hello, Chicago, and then they're like, hello, Pittsburgh. And to us, it's like, okay, cool. But we don't realize, like, oh my gosh, they were in Chicago, then now they're in Pittsburgh, now they're in,
Yeah. And I mean, this is something that we've sort of talked about a little bit. We've compared the AEW schedule to the WWE schedule, how
Right.
one of the appeals of working for AEW is you really only work one day a week unless there's a pay-per-view. So an episode like this, you can start to see how that might appeal and how that might have significant weight against a higher paycheck for a lot of people when you see stuff like that. But
yeah, that's true. But it was awesome. It was awesome. And as the episode ends, it says, coming up next, the Montreal Screwjob. And I couldn't believe it. I literally paused it. I took a picture on my phone and I sent it to you guys. I said, the temptation is so strong to watch it, but I didn't. I resisted. I did not watch about the Montreal Screwjob.
well, Coltrane, you have no idea what kind of segue you just gave me.
Yes, excellent.
So,
Oh no, is it time?
I messaged you guys in our little private chat. I don't know if you saw it. I am so sorry. I usually tell you guys what we're gonna do next before I tell everybody, and I meant to tell you, but I thought of this when you sent that message, and I kind of concocted this idea because I thought I was kind of like, do we keep? I was thinking maybe we could go a little deeper into the fandom, maybe look at some internet shows and stuff. But I was like, no. Let's. I think I like. We've been talking. It felt really good to finally show you Jim Cornette. It felt really good to finally show you Dark Side of the Ring. Let's do some more finally show yous. I like the finally show yous. And so there's two big things that I wanted to talk to you about for a long time since the beginning of this podcast. One of them is the Montreal Screwjob.
Yes.
And the other one is the Attitude Era. And it turns out the Montreal Screwjob occurred during the Attitude Era. So I think, here's what I think we're going to do.
It's kind of the start of it.
Yeah, the early days of it, right?
Yeah.
The Attitude Era, you could arguably define as the time when Vince McMahon turned heel. When did he turn heel? Well, in kayfabe later, but in reality, November of 1997 at Survivor Series during the Montreal Screwjob. So, folks, here's what we're going to do. I'm launching what I think is going to be a 3-week program, and we are going to talk about the Montreal Screwjob, and I think from there, I'll see if I can figure out a way for us to drift into talking more about the Attitude Era. But I think this is a great place to start. And we will watch the Dark Side of the Ring episode, but we're not going to watch it yet because that is a more recent sort of interpretation of what happened. Instead, I would like to start with, I'm going to lay out the next 3 weeks for everybody here.
Woo!
So for next week, now, Coltrane, I understand you might not be able to make it next week. So if that's the case, then maybe this will be the week after.
Okay.
And next week, if you're listening at home, we haven't confirmed yet if Coltrane can make it, but I really want to save the Montreal Screwjob stuff for Coltrane. So next week we might come up with just kind of a more interesting topic, depending on if it's me and Tex or if we have a third chair. We'll figure that out. But I will give you guys the assignment now. And if for some reason Coltrane can make it next week, we'll do it next week. If that's not the case, then we'll do it the week after. But your next assignment is we are going to watch the 1997 Survivor Series, the pay-per-view that culminates with the Montreal Screwjob. I looked at the card, and I feel like it's a really interesting representation of the talent of this time. You're going to see the New Age Outlaws. You're going to see the Hart Foundation as a stable with Bret Hart and British Bulldog and Jim Neidhart. You're going to see Kane versus Mankind, which will be an interesting match. So that'll introduce you to both of those wrestlers.
Right.
You're also going to see Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Owen Hart.
Oh, wow. See, I know Stone Cold Steve Austin. I've never really seen him wrestle, as crazy as that sounds.
So we're going to start there. We're going to start with the event.
All right.
No,
and we'll review it kind of the way. Sorry, what's that, Tex?
Is there no Undertaker?
I don't see him on the card in front of me.
Series.
Maybe he was on injury or on a break or something. But the headbangers, Mosh and Thrash will be there.
I missed the Attitude Era completely. I don't know how. I was huge into wrestling my whole life, and then somehow I stopped, and I missed the entire Attitude Era. I mean, I only know The Rock as the actor.
In his shows.
Crazy. As my friend, I know that you were somebody that entered your career relatively early in life, and maybe that had something to do with it.
That's actually a very good point, right? I was working 100-hour weeks at like 19 years old, right? Yeah, that's true. I mean, wait, that can't be possible because I'm 25 now. So yeah, I was, 6 years old when I started working all those insane hours.
And just this is an old school Survivor Series, so it's going to have Survivor Series elimination matches, which was kind of the gimmick of that show that they don't really do anymore. I don't know, maybe they'll bring it back, but it's 4-on-4 elimination matches. And so I can't remember exactly how that works. I think if you get pinned, you're out. Is that the idea, Tex?
I don't remember.
We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. And so we're gonna watch that. That'll be great. And that's going to be the start of our discussion of the Montreal Screwjob. So the next week after that, we are going to watch what was the very first famous wrestling documentary, which is Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows. It came out in 1998, and it was a really crazy. Have you seen this, Tex? Wrestling with Shadows?
A long time ago.
It was the very first really famous documentary. It just so happened that this documentary crew was following Bret Hart for a year, and they were there the night of the Screwjob. And so they did not expect to get this footage, but this documentary is a huge component of why that moment became so infamous, because they had so much unprecedented footage behind the scenes of what was going on. So we're going to watch that after. And then the third piece to this is we will watch that Dark Side of the Ring episode, which is from a few years ago, but it's a more contemporary kind of like looking back reinterpretation, like knowing what we know now. What do we think about what happened then? So that'll be the next 3 weeks. And my hope is that sometime between now and then, I'm going to figure out a good way to bridge that to more discussion and widening our look at the Attitude Era. That's the current plan. That's the current plan.
Genius. So, I love this. I'm so excited. Love this.
Yeah. So stay tuned for next week. I will tweet out once I know what we're doing next week. But hey, worst case scenario, just have some some folks talking about wrestling, so it should be a good time. And whether it's next week or the week after, next time Coltrane's back, we're gonna get into it. So yeah, that's the idea. Now, I kind of didn't give you guys a chance to give any closing thoughts on the Macho Man story because I wanted to take that segue when it was served to me on a silver platter. But any closing thoughts on the doc? I will just say that Macho Man, as a kid, I loved Macho Man, and I loved Hulk Hogan, and I loved Macho Man. And there was a point in my childhood where I decided I liked Macho Man better. And then Macho Man turned heel, and I decided, no, I like Hulk Hogan better now because Macho Man's a bad guy. And I was a kid, and kids don't like bad guys. And but I know there was a piece of me that would have rather cheered for Macho Man. I just couldn't because I was a 10-year-old kid and he was a heel. But yeah, so yeah, he's the childhood icon. He's my Han Solo. He's the guy. What about you guys?
Like I said, I really like these shows because it really shows you all the stuff you didn't know about these people. Because you always see Macho Man as higher than life, and it's really cool to see that he struggles just like us. Lame.
No, that's absolutely, and that makes it real. That makes it real. And it was funny too, Shu, what you said about how he turned heel, but I still kind of loved him, but I knew I had to hate him because he was a heel. Yeah. And they mentioned that in the documentary as well. We tried to turn him heel, but people still loved him.
Yeah.
They still loved Macho Man Randy Savage, and that's what makes him such an icon. And that's what was such a big thing watching this. Go ahead, Ty.
I think it is a shame because if he was still here, obviously, if you don't know, he passed away in a car crash. If he was still here, I think he'd be so beloved. And
it's a damn shame he's not around to be celebrated in this new sort of era of wrestling flourishing once again, for sure.
I think he would be everywhere. And it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, but also with us talking about him, with this episode, his spirit lives on. You know what I mean? He's still with us.
Yeah.
The Macho Man is still very present.
And we very recently got to see LA Knight and Bianca Belair tell us to snap into a Slim Jim. So
that's exactly right. Yeah. Exactly. So I think it's a wonderful thing. So fantastic. Absolutely loved it. Looking forward to Montreal. But what a legend, what an icon. Great hearing both sides. And like I said, with us talking about it, his spirit lives on and it always will.
Yeah.
Timeless.
You just reminded, last line that I'm going to talk about, then we're going to close out the show. I just loved Eric Bischoff's line of when he came over to WCW. He's like, I didn't just get Macho Man. I got $750,000 a year in Slim Jim money.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's so great.
So great. So true.
Yeah. All right. Well, definitely he's on my Mount Rushmore. That's for sure. Love the Macho Man. We'll revisit Dark Side of the Ring as this show goes on. We know we'll be talking about Montreal Screwjob, but I think there's a lot of stuff that docuseries has to offer us in talking about some of the more controversial moments and just interesting characters in wrestling history. But yeah, what a fun episode. I wish we had more time to talk about Macho Man, but just so much happened this week. It was a whirlwind, but somehow we've managed to barely scrape by with our maximum self-imposed time limit. So I'm going to wrap up the show. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for being here live. For me, for Tex, for Kolt, later, losers.